Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good. Want to make sure that the crowd's awake. Thank you. I'm John Alger, president of James Madison University, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this year's third installment of the Madison Vision Series. Through the Madison Vision Fund, we're proud to sponsor the Madison Vision Series and want to thank the series co-sponsor, the Office of Madison Institutes in Outreach and Engagement, as well as JMU's award-winning debate program. Additionally, I want to thank all the supporters of the fund who have made this series possible. Our goal is to bring prominent leaders to campus to look at our current civic landscape through the prism of creating an engaged and enlightened citizenry. This is the final installment of the series for the fall semester. Next spring, we look forward to bringing you Marianne Mason, co-director of the Center for Economics and Family Security at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, Rianne Eisler, who is an author, social scientist, and co-founder of the Center for Partnership Studies, and Lawrence Lessig, professor of law at Harvard Law School and director of the Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard University. Today, we have the opportunity to showcase the importance of debate and its role in developing, training, and fostering engaged citizens. Here at JMU, our debate team is almost as old as the institution itself. For the last 103 years, debate has represented our institution across the Commonwealth and the country, achieving new heights in the past decade. JMU Debate has become the premier public debate team in the country, receiving the award for the top public debate program in the nation for 5 of the past 8 years. JMU's been lauded for our ability to examine a broad range of current events and to reach a wide array of potential audiences. This is highlighted by one of the key areas of growth for the JMU Debate program, its emphasis on public debate and the value that public debate brings to the process of being engaged in one's community and world. Because of the great success of the JMU Debate program and its director, Dr. Michael Davis, who's with us today, and our leadership in this area, we are fortunate to be joined by 6 young debaters from iDebate Rwanda. iDebate Rwanda was founded in 2012 to promote debate in Rwanda by giving students the tools to change their own world, by teaching them how to think critically and solve problems creatively, and thus to impact their own society. By taking part in debate, students become engaged learners, critical thinkers, and leaders who are effective advocates for themselves and their communities. Debate can transform disengaged learners into confident students who are more likely to succeed in school and ultimately in their careers and in life. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the Memorial Hall Auditorium Mr. Jean-Michel Habineza, the International Coordinator for iDebate, as well as 5 of their debaters. Jean-Michel, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for introducing the iDebate team members to us. We're honored to have all of you with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Niwenje Dadi. I'm from Rwanda. So we traveled 32 hours to get to the US. And I'd like to share a story with you all tonight. Is it enough? That is a question that I often ask myself when I think about the contribution of society. Taking some time to meditate about my past, my current life, and how I want to shape my future. I think about the experiences that I have accumulated since childhood. The underlying theme is one of appreciating what I have learned through my experiences and focusing on what I can do to bring about change. I was born and raised from Rwanda, from parents who were always on the run. I never understood why we would always move to different places until I was 12 years old. Talking to my grandmother, I understood that we belonged to the wrong ethnic group according to the policies and the government that was in Rwanda during and before 1994. My parents were constantly threatened and harassed, but they had no option but to live with it. My mother was a social worker. She was never sure to come back home. So every day when she went to work, my sister and I would hold her hand, walk with her down the road, and give her hugs. And those hugs always felt like the last. The night of 6th April 1994, the plane that was carrying the President Habyarimana Juvenile was shot down. This event sparked off the genocide that had been planned for a good number of years. And anyone called a Tutsi was to be hunted down and killed. The next morning, we were waken up by gunshots, militias opening fire on our house, forcing us to move out. It was terrifying for a morning alarm. My grandmother walked out of the house on her knees and begging them to stop shooting. We grabbed a few things and my mother held my sister's hand and moved out of the house. We followed the crowd of people being forced to flee their homes. We walked down the Nyabugogo road leading out of Kigali. Perhaps the adults thought that we would be more secure being out of the Kigali. At 5 years old, I saw a dead body for the first time. His head had been chopped off and put on his feet. I was petrified. My grandmother pulled my hand and told me, "Don't let anyone see your face. Because you stand out of the crowd." Why would those people kill me if they saw my face? I wondered. I wondered what was wrong with my face and what was wrong with my mother's face. On the way, I lost sight of my family, but I kept walking in the crowd until I came across a lady who was our neighbor. She held my hand and we walked together until we reached a roadblock. Only people with identity cards mentioning Hutus or Twa were allowed to go on. The rest, who were Tutsis, were either killed on the spot with machetes or told to go back and be killed by others. As we walked back, not knowing where to go, we came across my family. My mother had my young brother in her womb and my sister on her back. We walked back and went to hide in a small church, not far from where we lived. Entering the church, we found other people taking refuge there. For a few moments, we felt secure because we were in the house of the Lord. That was a naive thought that the killers would not come in to kill people. Keep in mind that we had to hide our faces. My mother and I went to hide behind the church doors so that when the doors would open, no one could see us. It went on like that for some time, staying in the church with no pastor or priest, but instead cries of agony, suffering and despair. People were praying, wishing to die by bullets versus being killed by machetes, because the gunshots will cause less suffering. The militia would come 3 times every morning and randomly pick people to take behind the church and kill them. One morning, they picked men first, women second, to rape and kill, and children third. The third time when they came to grab the children, they pulled me by the ear and hit me with a gun butt out of the church. I had moved out of my spot where we would not be seen when the church doors opened. I was going to be killed like my father without the chance to say goodbye to my family. They took us behind the church, they shot the first child, and then we were standing there, not moving, not saying anything, and fear was greater than ever. The second child was killed with a hammer hit on his head. I was fourth in the line. The child who was next to me cried for help, begged them for help, but they had no mercy. A woman called Antoinette, coming to see one of her sons, who was one of the killers, saw me, and when it was my turn to be killed. They were asking me if I were a boy or a girl. I could not answer. I was unable to speak. Crying was all I could do. The woman came and pulled me and took me back into the church. She told her son and his friends to leave me. As she pushed me back into the church, she said, "You're lucky, because I know your mom and she once helped me." Unable to talk, I went back to our spot and sat next to my mother. That very same day, in the middle of the night, we had to move out of the church because very few people were remaining, and sooner or later the killers were going to check behind the doors. The woman who saved me and took us to her house. Being there did not make us feel any more secure. We were in a place where one of the greatest killers called his home. He was a killer, but surprisingly obedient to his mother. We spent the rest of the time at her home, eating once every 4 days. One day we had to leave because the killers had known we were staying in that house. With the help of one of the ladies, we moved to another place, which was a refugee camp. Today, I'm so thankful to all the people that I came across in my life. It makes me think that I got lucky. Different people saved me from being killed different times. And I was helped so many times. I always ask myself, why is it that I was not killed like other members of my family? Why is it that today I'm able to smile, I'm able to walk head straight? But I'm sure of one thing. I probably will never know the answer, but I know God saved me for a purpose, and I must serve that purpose. That I understand when I started going to church, not to hide behind the church doors, but to thank God for He saved us. The issue now is to figure out what that purpose is. Thank you.
I was born in a family of 5 kids, comprised of 3 boys and 2 girls. Before the genocide started, my father was an engineer who was well respected and loved by his community because of his character and his goodwill. From early on, I knew that my family was not like other families. My father was a Hutu and my mother was a Tutsi. In our extended family, we were the only ones that came from a mixed heritage. The rest of our family was either purely Hutu or purely Tutsi. So the fact that we came from different backgrounds was, in my opinion, a blessing. However, it later turned out to be a huge burden. Being a Hutu married to a Tutsi in a pre-genocide Rwanda was a big load that my father had to carry. It forced him to make certain decisions that would help protect his wife and his family from being persecuted, some that he wasn't very proud of. One of the choices that he made was to join the ranks of the Mouvement Républicain National pour la Démocratie, MRND. As a man married to a Tutsi, my father was already seen as a traitor, according to the extremist Hutus. And if he had refused to join the ranks, he would have put my mother's life in danger and labeled as a traitor. He would have never been able to live with himself. When the genocide started, I was 7 years old. Due to my family's mixed heritage, militiamen targeted our family. These men included our neighbors and our friends. Many of them, only weeks before, used to share beer with my father, and now they were the same men who wanted to kill him, his family, and all the other Nyanzis, the extremist word for Tutsis. With the help of my aunt, we escaped from Kigali and took a journey to Ruhengeri, located in northern Rwanda. The journey to Ruhengeri usually takes 2 hours, but for us it took a few days due to the high number of Interahamwe barriers. In the car we're traveling with, a cousin who, according to the different Interahamwe soldiers, looked like a cockroach, an Inyenzi. Along the way, my dad used all of his savings, all of his money, to pay off the killers so they would not kill anyone. Finally, after a few days, We arrived at my aunt's house in Ruhengeri. We spent the next 3 months in hiding. And when the Rwandese Patriotic Front, the RPF, came, the military group which was fighting the Interahamwe and the genocidal regime, we fled out of fear to Congo. We thought they might kill us as well. We went to Congo not as diplomats, but as refugees. We first went to Birere, then to Kiwanja, then to Machinga. When we were there at the refugee camp, life was not good as we struggled with sickness. When there was a cholera outbreak, my brother got cholera. But again, due to my dad's connections and money, he paid some medical volunteers to help him. My sister, my own sister, due to the horrific images of bodies and hunger, became mentally ill, and even up to now, she still suffers from it time to time. However, my dad did whatever a good father can do, and he tried to protect us from all danger. A few months later, life in the camp was becoming dangerous, and we made the decision to go back to Rwanda. When we did come back to Rwanda, it was no longer the beautiful country we had left behind. There were corpses everywhere, and there was an environment of fear and mistrust. Nothing could have prepared us for the devastation that we faced after we came back. My mother lost everyone in her family, from her parents to her sisters. They killed them all, the Interahamwe. When we came back, we had lost all of our property, and people had taken everything in our house, chairs, tables, everything. In order to get us back on our feet, my dad decided to use his experience as one of the few educated people after genocide in Rwanda to look for a job. However, as we spent more time in the neighborhood we had grown up in, it became clear that the people that had stolen all of our property were our neighbors, who thought that our family was killed. At that moment, the government made an announcement that all community members should give back all that was stolen to people who had escaped to the camps. The environment at that time was not good, full of suspicion, and all it required for a man to go to jail or a woman to go to jail was someone to say that they had committed genocide. One morning, someone came to our house and took my dad, claiming that he had been accused of organizing genocide. Since he was part of the MRND party at the time, he was an easy target. He was taken to jail and he has been in prison for the last 19 years. We have learned that the people who accused my father are the same people who had taken our property. They accused him with the hope that he would not be able to accuse them of stealing. Their kids with whom we used to play football in the neighborhood, they refused to talk to us since our father is in prison for committing crimes that he had never committed, that he would never commit. 20 years later, our family has been torn like nothing else because of genocide. When I think about the impact of genocide, I think of my mother. She has lost her whole family to senseless killings, just because they were claimed to be Tutsis. And her husband is in prison because he was a moderate Hutu, and because all he ever wanted was to protect her from danger. When I look at my mother, I can see that she suffers from trauma, but I've never had the courage to confront her. The remaining part of her extended family abandoned her because she betrayed them by marrying a Hutu. Whenever I think of the impact the genocide has had on me, I sometimes wonder why I'm involved in all of these youth activities, pushing for reconciliation and peace in our generation. Then, I remember that even though we are all the products of our past, we're not prisoners of it. People who committed all of these wrongs did not think far. They did not think of how their actions would have an impact on lives, on their kids, and on their grandkids' lives. Those who betrayed my father wanted to destroy his family. But I stand today, and I refuse to be a victim of the past. I refuse to choose my friends according to what their mothers or fathers did. I refuse to let my wounds become an excuse to inflict harm on others. Ultimately, everyone in our generation carries a lot of wounds. I carry many wounds caused by betrayal and the killing of my family. Nevertheless, being wounded has softened my heart for those kids who lost both parents because they were Tutsi, or for those whose parents died of diseases. I still view myself as a peacemaker and a person dedicated to making this world a better place. My commitment to my generation is to make sure that what happened 20 years ago never ever happens again. Thank you.
Dear future child, let me tell you about your grandfather. The main adjective that would have described him was responsible. He loved his family so much, us, his children, his wife, and in an inexplicably strong way, his siblings and their children. He was born fourth in 10, and was among the few who actually went to and finished school by the time of his death. In his inexplicable love, he had paid for the studies of his younger siblings without a single complaint, even insisting, putting aside his needs. He had no extra money for all that, and he was sometimes even missing a few coins, 35 Rwandan francs at that time, to pay for a taxi, forcing him to go to work by foot under the burning 2 p.m. sun of Kigali that you will get to know. As you can imagine, he was whip-smart and a spot-on analyst. Due to the fear of exposing his family to the cruelty of the regime at the time, I assume he never engaged in public political demonstrations or debates. He did not support the regime, on the contrary, but he was just a man trying to protect his family, silence being the only way. In his analysis, he relied heavily on logic. I mean, it is logical that the UN would never let massacres happen, right? He trusted them as anyone could have, and they failed him, abandoning him and a million lives to die. He was killed the day after their departure, Saturday, 9th April 1994. Upon hearing the news that they were leaving, he turned to my mother and said, "Ce sont les catacombes." Again, his analysis was spot on. Before being shot dead, he pleaded for our lives. I, my siblings, and my mother's. "Winyicira umugore n'abana," he said. "Don't kill my wife and kids." Did I mention he was a man to whom everyone, upon meeting him, even you, I'm sure, at the end of this letter, was drawn to immense respect for him? The dignity with which he conducted himself gave him almost a sovereign aura. Maybe the killers saw an incredibly respectable man who had accepted his capital sentence with almost sympathy and comprehension for the killers. I get it. I have to die. They surely thought he deserved death for having the wrong box checked in his ID, but they also saw a man scandalized by the idea of even considering killing women and children. Maybe what went through their minds is, yeah, sure, he's a Tutsi, a Ninyenzi, a cockroach, a good-hearted one who has to die. But his wife and children? That would be a little too much. Or maybe they were just in too much of a hurry to go and kill our neighbor and his family before it was dark. Maybe the chief of those in Hirahamwe had a stern wife who expected him home early. Our neighbor, his wife, his children were massacred, leaving only one survivor. The bullet touched one of her kidneys, which left her with struggles to conceive for years as a married woman. Or it was just because they hoped to come back at midnight and rape my mother, whose ID had the right box checked in the safety of the night, as they had told her, "Uturindire turagaruka saa sita z'ijoro." Wait for us, we will come back at midnight. She did not wait. A woman told her she will surely die, us with her that midnight. We hurriedly left the house, struggling to find a path among the looters, busy tearing apart the house my mother had never wanted in the first place, to find refuge at one of the neighbors. That is how we escaped our first encounter with death. And there were many more encounters with death after that in the following 3 months, but that's another story for another time. Your grandfather pleaded for our lives, and for whatever reason, we lived. He gave us a chance to grow up and become abagabo, men. He gave you a chance to see the light one day. Was he perfect? No. He was human, made mistakes, and even hurt people just like any normal person. 2 years ago, I discovered some things about him that left me deeply disappointed and wondering if we would have gotten along. That was me forgetting that I am myself as far from perfect as one can be. And I decided to forgive him for something I'm not sure he would even be sorry for. But that's life, baby. Nobody's perfect. There must be a question on your mind right now. Why address this letter to you especially that I do not plan for your arrival for at least the next 7 years? Don't I have friends? Tell me, who else would be better to talk to about a relative you love but never met than a relative you love but have never met? Who else would you tell about how it feels to lose your father over something as futile as the shape of a nose, to have to listen to your friends say how cool it is to have a dad because moms are so strict, to realize you could become a president one day but that he will never know, to want to make someone proud you're not sure you would have liked, to grow up wondering if you got your weird skin on your toes from him, to be moved by someone saying you have his eyes, to have lost him when you were 8 months old, to remember he is not there mostly during celebrations because you see the tears and nostalgia in your mother's eyes, to want to figure out why the surviving uncles and aunts were virtually absent in your childhood. Was the responsibility too much, or is it your mixed blood? I am sure you will listen, understand, and maybe cry a little when you find out how much his forced absence affected me. I hope the reason will be that I will have chosen the right father for you. Even though I know as much about a good father as I know about astrology. Astrology has something to do with the stars, right? I hope to find someone who will heal my wounds and fill the void my own father left through loving you. I hope you will not find yourself in the position that I am in, 20 years old, talented, and with success waiting for you, but clueless about the most primitive form of love. Maybe the reason why I am already worried about this is because I had a wonderful mother who put aside the unimaginable pain of being widowed after only 5 years of marriage, 28 years old with 3 kids to raise us in the best way she could. She made sure we did not realize something as big as a father was missing. She succeeded so well at this that until I was 14 and she wouldn't give me permissions a father probably would have given me, I thought fathers were completely useless. Just people you call dad, a name that has as much meaning to me as snow. I've only seen in pictures. I don't even think I realized up to now the usefulness of a father. And I hope that watching your father with you will teach me and heal me. Take care. See you in maybe 7 years or more. And hold on tight. Someone already deeply loves you and is planning ahead for you. Love, your future mother. Thank you.
Rwanda. So I would like to put a little bit of perspective and context to whatever you have just heard right now. For many of you, when you hear about Rwanda, the first thing that comes to your mind is the 1994 genocide. And the only images that you have in your mind is a lot of people killing one another for no good reasons. But again, that is only a small part of the whole story. To talk to you a little bit about Rwanda. Rwanda is a country in East Africa, in the heart of Africa. Rwanda, just like many other African countries, was colonized first by the Germans and then later on by the Belgians. When the colonialists came, they found a society that was not perfect, but they found a society, nevertheless, that was organized. And they had 3 social classes. And the social class was decided on the number of cows that you had, because a cow was a sign of wealth. If you had 10 cows and more, you were a Tutsi. If you had less than 10 cows, you're a Hutu. And then if you lived in the forest, you're a Twa. So when the colonialists came, they used the divide and conquer method, where they divided them and made them into classes. And as you can imagine, any social class, there is a sense of mobility. It's basically saying that a Tutsi was a person who be considered a wealthy person, and a Hutu was a person who be considered a low-income or middle-class person. When the colonialists came, they were fascinated with this idea of race. So they divided them according to race.
If you were tall and had a cinder nose, then you are Tutsi. And if you were shorter and you had a broad nose, you are Hutu. And the Twas were usually the pygmies that live in the forest. And throughout history, through manipulation, and it's always about the power and who has the power. The colonialists supported first the Tutsis, and then they made the Hutus go against them. Long story short, on the 6th of April 1994, the plane that was carrying the former president of Rwanda was shot down. And instantly, one of the worst genocides in the history of mankind started. For 100 days, 1 million people were being murdered. 1 million people were killed for one reason, being born different. That is 10,000 people every day for 100 days. And that is 3 9/11 every day for 100 days. And while all of this was happening, the world turned its back on Rwanda. Because for the world, Rwanda was not a place of strategic interest. Rwanda did not have oil. Rwanda did not have minerals that the world needed. But when we talk about genocide, many people tend to view it in the sense of the number of people that died. But I would like to ask you, if you were to think about it, the true victims of genocide are those that were born after the genocide. Those who were either too young to experience a genocide, or those who were not even born when the genocide happened. I would like you to imagine. You see, the way the genocide in Rwanda differs from the Holocaust is that after the Holocaust, Jews kind of went all over the world. Some came to America, some went to Israel, and some went to different places. But in Rwanda, people were forced to live next door to the people that committed genocide. Imagine if you had to live next to the person that killed your parents. If you had to live in the same community as those who tried to kill you a few years back. But most of all, imagine the burden that the post-genocide generation is feeling. From all the 3 stories that we read, those are not stories from a movie. Those are real stories about each person. The people, now imagine, how are those people going to live together? How is the son of those who perpetrated the genocide and then the son of the person who's a victim, a survivor of the genocide, going to live together? Not only living next to one another, but engaging one another. Because you see, the questions that our parents have to answer are different. In our parents' generation, there are victims and perpetrators. But in our generation, there's no such thing. So how are we going to live together? And I would like to ask Kristen as she's going to answer that question.
People hate each other because they don't know each other, and they do not know each other because they do not communicate. This was a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. The most prevalent thing about a post-conflict situation is people keep quiet because of the hatred, guilt, mistrust, and fear. This is from Professor Abraham J. Peck, whose parents survived the Holocaust. So what do we do in a post-conflict situation when 70% of the population, of the Rwandan population, is composed of the youth and are what we call the future generation, so we say in our country? When everyone fosters different kinds of wounds within this generation, what do you do? And when everyone within the youth is not a perpetrator, but simply a victim to the guilt, a victim to fear, a victim to mistrust, and a victim to so many other consequences of the genocide. We believe that debate comes along so people can talk, people can open up, as silence is the most prevalent thing in a post-conflict situation. So what do you do when these people within this generation have these wounds that no one can answer or no one can help out with? That's what we bring about debate. Debate is mostly a way that we feel that people will talk, and not only talk about the differences, but people will talk about how they view things. It is only when you could talk and understand how different you are, or it is only when you talk and understand how people think differently, then you can understand the situation. When people talk about peace and reconciliation, or the theme that we call back home, never again, you need to think about all these people who are in silence and need to talk. So debate is mostly what we use as the youth. It's a tool of peace. People call debate an art, but debate is also a tool of peace back in my country. So debate is not old, it is just new, but we hope that debate is going to help a generation move into a reconciliation, or so to say, a united Rwanda. So Ivan is going to talk more about debate and what we do as iDebate Rwanda. Thank you.
Good evening. 20 years ago, the youth in Rwanda participated a lot in the genocide. And what we saw was that the government and the ruling party, what they did was introduce different policies. As you know, a genocide comes in different processes, and it's a systematic way of eliminating. So they had to pass out different policies, and people never got to talk about that. 20 years later today, Rwanda marks 20 years anniversary after the genocide. And what you can see here is the post-genocide generation. Silence was part of the Rwandan culture. And the fact that people are not able to speak up did affect a lot in how people received and implemented ideas from the government, which of course led to the genocide. iDebate Rwanda today has acted as a platform for the youth, for the young generation that is coming up, to exchange ideas, to discuss different topics, to share stories. I want to tell you a personal experience. I always feel free and relaxed when I tell my story to them, more than I would tell my parents. Because my parents don't want to listen to that. They've gone through a lot, so they don't want to listen to that. So, to me, or to us, debate has come as a platform for us to share the burdens, the stories, and also to talk about everyday challenges, but also to be part of the solutions. Just 2 years since iDebate came into existence, it has really created a lot of impact. And today, we're very glad to be here in the USA sharing our stories, trying to share the Rwandan story, but also trying our best to learn from the USA debate programs. We've moved around different campuses, and you have very great debate programs. And we believe with that we can go back home and improve the culture more. So, on behalf of the team, we see debate as a peace-building structure in our country. We do not see debate as something that people have to argue and then later be enemies. Rather, as a way to communicate and be constructive and even make friends and families. It's a platform to reconstruct the country, to bring in ideas, to also help in the process of peace and reconciliation in the post-genocide generation. Therefore, on behalf of the whole team, we'd like to say thank you very much to the whole team that has received us, the president. We are very glad to be here and sharing our stories and being part of the change that we need to see and being part of this great movement. Thank you very much. May God bless you all.
And so we'd like to take this moment to welcome anyone with questions. I do feel like the mood in the room is kind of sober, sad. And that's the problem, because we feel that we have so much to share But then also part of what we have to share is the fact that we are here. I mean, it's still amazing what is happening, that we are still engaging one another. And in Rwanda, we are also living. We love everything you love. Teta loves food and everything else. So we're still, we are not very sad and dying every day. So, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. It could be about, even if you want to know about the music, we can dance for you.
Okay, so my name is Cecilia Serja, and I'm a part of the JMU debate team. And I know when we hang out, we talk about all types of issues, including current events and history and just general discussion. So do you guys generally just talk about your experiences as people, or do you also spend a lot of time talking about current events internationally and in Rwanda?
We talk about, basically, debate is not only talking about what we go through, it's talking about what our country faces, what we face as a personal, or issues that face the public. So yeah, we do talk about general things just like you and your friends from your debate team do. We talk about any other matters.
Just to add more on that, we talk about a lot of stuff. From the economy to politics to everything that is,
Food.
You can mention that. Everything that is affecting the society, we believe every kind of topic we can talk about that, but also not forgetting the kind of society we stay in every day. So it's a composition of all that stuff and all. So hope you get the idea of that. Okay.
We've been here for some time, and some of us are talking about football and the Kardashians. Everything.
Hi, I'm Jen, and you guys were talking about the tensions between neighbors and the history that's happened there. I was wondering if crime rates are really high back home.
Actually, crime rates are low. If I was told to choose a place to live in, Rwanda is just the most secure place because we walk at night, we do all that we do. Crime rate is very low. I wouldn't deny the fact that there's crime in a country, but it includes crime that's even normal elsewhere. There's stealing, there's killing, and there's different types of crime. But if I were to measure, crime rate is very low, despite the fact that people live together.
Just to make you really, comfortable, Rwanda is a very safe place to live.
Yeah.
Actually ranked number 2 to live in Africa right now. So people there are so, very good, and so we live in peace. So don't have that idea.
And the other thing is the crime rate in America is higher than in Rwanda, just saying.
So you all should be moving.
So you can move to Rwanda.
We'd be happy to have you.
Just very small.
Hi, my name's Arnella, and my parents were as well genocide survivors. So I grew up in a post-conflict society, and I know when I go back home, there's still a lot of tension between the factions where I'm from. So I'm wondering if there is still tension in Rwanda after your genocide.
Yes. And of course, I mean, you can't expect that people are going to now live in peace just 20 years after the genocide. I mean, if you were to look at, for example, if you study in the Holocaust, you find that almost for 20 years, people were actually very quiet. The Germans refused to talk about what happened during the Holocaust, and then it was only maybe in 1960 and 68 where this anger came up, and the young Germans were angry at their parents' generation. But you don't expect people that have suffered so much that in just 1 year they're just gonna forgive one another. I mean, put it in your own perspective. When a friend has betrayed you, it takes you years to be able to forgive them. Now imagine if that person killed your parents or someone in your family. It's gonna take some time. And we usually say that there's no end goal. We are all in the process. Everything is a process. It takes time. And sometimes I think we need to celebrate the process in a sense. That even the fact that people are talking and people are working together, people are trying to engage one another, I think that that is already something worth celebrating, because nothing has ever happened like that in Rwanda, in the world. I mean, Rwanda is the first example of perpetrators living in the same communities as their victim after such a horrific case of genocide. So I think that we need to be graceful to ourselves and understand that it's going to take time, some generations, and what we are trying to do is we make it a little bit better, and we almost bridge the gap a little bit more so that our kids and our grandkids can find the world with less burden, and perhaps a world better than we found it.
Hi, my name's Amy, and I just wanted to ask how the younger generations in Rwanda feel about mixed marriages now after the genocide.
Actually, mixed marriages are still kind of a problem, because if you look at the youth is more flexible with intermarriages, but the older generation sometimes, gets in. For example, like your parents wouldn't want you to. Some parents are fine, and some parents are way not good with that, depending on what they lived through. So I'd say it's still a challenge, but nevertheless, people still get married every day, despite the fact that your parents will threaten you, hey, I'm not going to come to your wedding, or the next day they come to your wedding. That's what I'd say.
The name of love.
In the name of love.
Louder. My name's Ryan. It was brought up that a lot of countries outside of Rwanda turned their back during the whole incident of the genocide. Is there a sense of anger or bitterness towards outside countries like America or countries involved in like the United Nations? Is there a sense of anger in Rwanda towards outside countries?
Well, apart from France, just at the end of the genocide, of course, all Rwandese felt like they'd been betrayed, because it's natural. No one came, no one intervened. It was Rwandese who stopped the genocide. So there was that feeling of hatred, but countries did apologize. For example, the US, Bill Clinton came, just keeps on coming and saying he's sorry, and saying he's sorry. So there is that sense of, there are those people who think that the United States didn't do much, Belgians did bad things, French people are just, wow. And the UN, nobody likes the UN, but there are people who again think that there is a chance for the United States to become a partner with Rwanda. England is actually a very strong partner with Rwanda. So in the beginning there was that hatred for outside countries, but now they've begun to bridge the gap a little bit, and they're coming closer together.
If I'd add on to that, it's also created a sense of what we call back home agaciro, which means dignity. And most Rwandans learned that no stranger is going to come and solve the problems at home. So what's happening is that the Rwandan people feel the need to solve their own problems. It has brought them to a point that they feel that nobody's going to teach you self-worth, and nobody's going to come from outside to help you solve your family issues. So it's brought that spirit of agaciro, which is dignity in English.
Hi, my name's Ellie Miller. I'm also on the debate team. First, I just really wanted to thank you. I think you really all verbalized how awesome I think debate is, and I never really can say it as well as you all did, and so I really appreciate how you went about, presenting debate to everyone. My question is, how exactly does iDebate Rwanda go about increasing participation in debate? Is it like a school curriculum, or do you host events and things like that?
So basically, iDebate is a debate program for secondary students. And the way it's set up is that we work with 22 schools. We have set up debate clubs in all of these different schools. We run 3 main programs, which is the Kigali Debate League, which is a monthly competition for all our students to be able to participate in. And then we also have the summer debate camp, which brings together all the students. Last year we had 150, this year 250 students coming together, getting the training for 10 days. And we are also in the process of creating we have started from last year, created an East African League, which basically brings together all the 60 best schools in the region. So that's Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. And the way we function basically is that we provide training to all these students in all these debate clubs. Right now, in all the debate clubs, we have around 660 students. And but because of the lack of resources, the only students that participate in the league are around 220. And we are in the process of figuring out how we could increase participation from all the others. They get to debate in their own schools, but they can't compete against others. So we are in the process of doing that. But part of what has been amazing is because it's a new culture, a lot of the schools want to be able to participate in it. But of course, we are really careful in making sure that our resources can match whatever, schools that are there. But then also, see, sometimes I think that when we talk to you, it's really hard to grasp the context. Let me give you an example. We went to talk to a person in the Ministry of Education, and they had no idea what a debate is. And the reason is they have never seen that. They have never been in a debate. They have never experienced what debate is all about. And also, our political culture hasn't had debate before. So we are a society that follows authority. So, and that is why it was so easy to commit genocide, because then, because we're a society that is highly centralized, the government gives orders, and whether you disagree or not, you do it. And so what we are doing basically is we're telling people that it's okay to disagree and it's okay to actually question and say why. And so we are doing a lot of training and a lot of workshop teaching people how to ask the right question and how to think. Because sometimes it's something that we take for granted, that everybody would know and everybody knows that this is wrong. But we are teaching people how to think and how to argue and how to speak out. So that's a little bit about the program, but we are, of course, in very exciting times and growing and growing and growing. Yeah, so, and then right now, there is a new curriculum coming in 2017, and they are trying to include the element of debate in curriculum in schools.
Can everybody hear me? Oh, this is loud. My name's Shawn Tumen. I'm also a member of the debate team here, so thank you for presenting the debate the way you did. Part of my question is, you said there's like 250 active members who get to debate in the league and 650 involved. How did you as individuals have the opportunity to travel and do all the speaking that you do here? How did that come about? And then second part of that, you had mentioned it earlier partly as a joke, but I'll ask you anyway. What music do you like to listen to as a team?
So me and Brian are students. We're the only students who are here on this trip. Jean-Michel, like you heard the president said, he's the international coordinator. Christine is the president of iDebate. Ivan is a high school graduate, and he graduated from this program. And that he is also an organizer within the organization. The way me and Brian were able to come here is that we went through a series of applications where we had to write 3 essays based on questions that were given to us, and then we had to write what extracurricular activities we do. And out of all the applications, they chose the top 6, and those top 6 were brought to an interview with about 7 judges, and then out of 6, they had to pick 2, so we got a ticket. And then, I think, how many emails did you send? A few thousand emails that Jean-Michel sent along with they sent emails to the universities telling them that they had an idea of coming to the US and speaking to universities and talking about how debate has become a powerful tool in the country. And out of the few thousand, James Madison was one of them. So we took a flight, 33 hours, showed up, and we're here. So.
And also, for those who don't know, this year is the 20th commemoration of the genocide, so 2014. So what we thought of doing basically is, I think that this group kind of represents the new Rwanda, a Rwanda that is wounded but also moving. We usually say that it's almost like a person who lost a limb but who's still moving and striving forward and moving along. So this idea was basically to see ways in which we can come and talk to you a little bit about what happened in Rwanda, not so that you feel pity for us. I don't want that at the end of the presentation all you felt for us was pity. Oh my God, they're suffering. I want you to go and say, oh my God, they suffered, but they're doing so much to change that, which I think for me is the most powerful part. We're not denying the suffering, but we're also saying that there is something powerful about people deciding that despite the hurt, that they're going to do something. And we're also here because we really want help. We want to see from all the debate teams and all the different people that are doing amazing things and almost providing them an opportunity to do something amazing and to come and train our students, to teach, basically to share with us what they know. Because it's such a new program. We're talking with the president earlier on, and he said that James Madison is in the US a new university, a young one, because it's from 1908. Yes, but I would say we said that the oldest university in Rwanda is from 1973, and that most universities are probably like 20 years old or 10 years old. So it means that we are still very, very young. When you see a lot of the debate programs, he said that they're as old as the university. For us, that would be like in the next 80 years or something. So, so we're also here to get knowledge and share knowledge, because we think as we interact, as we exchange, something powerful happens. And we do hope that as you leave today, you would not look at yourself the same way, not look at Rwanda the same way. And that's what we want. And we also want to interact with you so we can get to know from one another.
The music.
And the music. Casey likes Nicki Minaj.
No, I don't. No.
Brian,
no.
Justin Bieber.
That's not true. That's no.
No, he doesn't like him. He loves him. It's not like that. Don't let.
Ivan, you want to answer? Ivan is the musician in our group, so he can answer what kind of music.
I love oldies.
You're an old soul.
Yeah, I'm an old soul. Back in the days.
I love soft rock, country music, Afro music, and R&B.
And I love everything that is not noise.
I don't like Nicki Minaj. Everything else but Nicki Minaj.
I like rap and rock. I don't like Justin Bieber.
You love him?
No.
I like reggae, but sometimes I just like silence.
Good afternoon. My name is Louis the Quack. I'm a senior here at James Madison. I would like to thank you all for sharing your stories. I'm actually originally from South Sudan, and right now we're kind of having internal strife between the Dinka and the Nuer. And I was just curious, what type of policies would you all implement to, let's say, reduce that burden between the two groups? I know you all definitely went through that with the Hutu and Tutsis, so I would love to hear your input. Thank you.
One interesting thing is that me and Dadi work for Aegis Trust, which is an organization that runs the Kigali Memorial Center. And part of the projects that we have been working on, especially Dadi, he can tell you a little bit more about, is creating opportunities for South Sudan to learn from what happened in Rwanda. So we have actually had a program with the chief, with traditional chiefs from South Sudan who come to Rwanda, and they get to meet everybody to be able to learn about what happened in Rwanda, and also gain not only the knowledge in terms of what leads to genocide and what leads to violence, but also how Rwanda was able to come out of that. And part of what we have done is that with Aegis Trust, as they come in, there's a big program in trying to get the youth to come in, because we believe that as you train the youth in basically becoming agents of change, then we're empowering them to be able to solve the problem. One of the things that I would say that Teta talked about is that we learned from the experience of Rwanda that even though genocide was committed by Rwandans, but it was also stopped by the Rwandans. And I think that is one important thing not to forget. But Dadi can add more on.
So we have a program at Aegis Trust we call the Rwanda Peace Education Program. It's very simple. It's getting students or young people to be involved in activities that are meant for peace building. So, for example, before I came, I was working on a project where we got 235 young people from across the country, bring them to the organization and bring in specialists to train them about peace building and different things that they could use. They learn peace building, they learn public speaking, project management, and a lot of other skills that they can use to build their societies, but also to advance as individuals. So we do that because we believe that the youth is the power of the country. We believe that they are the ones who should take a lead to advance and also develop the country. So when they're involved and when they learn and have hands-on, it's the best way we think we could help resolve the issue of being different, but also being not trusting each other. So it's bringing together people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different families, and having them work together to solve the problem. There's also a vision that the country has. It's called Vision 2020, and having everyone in the country work towards a common goal helps us to kind of let go our differences and work together as a group.
Hi, I'm Fred Fox, a member of the community and associated with JMU and a physician. I wonder if I could indulge you to expand the conversation on Africa and to give us your perspective on Ebola. We certainly deserve a debate on it, having one in this country, and there's a great deal of misinformation and paranoia that we hear. I'm not sure how long you've been in the country, but what is your perspective on Ebola?
We don't have Ebola, so don't worry, everybody. But I think that a lot of people, there's been a lot of noise about Ebola. Basically, it's something that it's a disease that has been in societies, in certain societies for quite some time. But one of the things that is kind of frustrating is that people do not know their geography. So again, it comes with a concept that Africa is a country, which is not. It's a continent of 54 countries. And if you look at it, we've been asked many times, you have Ebola. But again, if you look at it, the countries that are affected by Ebola are countries in West Africa. So actually really west. And actually, if you compare the distance between Rwanda and Liberia, you find that the US is actually closer to Liberia than Rwanda is.
So we are risking our lives coming here.
So we should be the ones scared. but then on top of that, I think that there's been a lot of work done in making sure that that disease is contained by different governments, even though sometimes people don't get to see that. And there's been also a lot of people who have almost sacrificed their lives to see that many people are treated so that the disease doesn't spread anymore. But other than that, it's only almost 4 countries out of 55 that have Ebola cases. So it's not everyone. It's not everyone that has Ebola. And the sad reality is that the reason to why it spreads so much is because in our cultures, we are very, very warm. So it means that, for example, when you meet someone, you're supposed to either hug them or handshake, but handshake is the most distant thing that you can do. So as people are very, very, I won't say touchy because it sounds bad, but they're, physical. Yeah, they're physical somehow. So
Sounds worse.
Or sounds worse, but as people are, they just enjoy
affectionate.
They are very affectionate, thank you. So it means that it spreads pretty well. But I think that there's been a lot of effort, and Rwanda is definitely very, very far from where Ebola is. And a lot of safety measures have been put. And we've been here for more than 21 days, so it's fine.
Hi, my name is Jacob Mayani. I'm originally from Kenya. First, I want to commend you for the great job you're doing. I think you guys are doing a great job and bring us up to speed with what's happening in Rwanda since the genocide. My question to you is, do people in Rwanda still identify themselves on tribal lines? For instance, do you identify yourself as a Hutu or a Tutsi since that time? And if you do, and if people still do that, what's the government doing to ensure that people identify themselves as Rwandese and not on tribal or ethnic lines to help foster the relationship and bring about peace and reconciliation?
Okay, so after the genocide in 1994, the Rwandese Patriotic Front fought and took control of the country. And so after they took control of the country, they abolished the ID cards, which was basically the means that Belgium had introduced to differentiate between the two ethnic groups, which were social classes. And so they abolished that, and so legally, you can't say that you're Hutu or Tutsi. There is no discrimination according to government, in government. And constitutionally, I think it's actually the first law that there is no discrimination between Hutus, Tutsis, Twas, or genders, or short, tall. All people are treated the same under the eyes of the law. Yeah.
But there are certain people, like our parents or the people or our grandparents that were able to survive the genocide. Some of them still feel like they still identify themselves as so because they did grow up in an environment where they were told that they were either Hutu, Tutsi, or Twa. But honestly, as the years go by, very few people progressively start dropping that act of identifying themselves as different from another. So then they're still seen as the same person. But there is a very small number of people who still see themselves as so, but they're still not, as in they don't go out into public and just say it in front of everybody. It's just something that they still think.
And also part of what the government did is sort of create a new identity after the genocide. An identity where everyone was now, I wouldn't say forced, but everyone was encouraged to see themselves as Rwandan. And one might ask why. I mean, it's, people say, for example, in Uganda, you know, if you say this one is a Muganda, this one is, you know, any other tribe, they think it's fine. You should be able to do the same thing in Rwanda. But again, for us, imagine if when someone asks me, are you a Hutu or a Tutsi? The response that I usually have is, the real question you're asking is, are you a killer or a victim? Because these words carry so much burden to them, they carry so much luggage that it becomes really hard to almost redeem those names, to redeem what it means to be a Hutu and what it means to be a Tutsi. So the government has been trying to encourage people to view themselves first as Rwandan. Doesn't mean that you can't view yourself as a Tutsi or Hutu, it's fine. But view yourself first as a Rwandan. And that, I think, was part of trying to get people to work together towards something else. And building this identity, a national identity, is what the government is trying to do. And also that's what most people are trying to do. And doesn't mean that people don't view themselves in that way. I mean, they were there for 70 years. Now, in 20 years, you don't expect that you're going to change that. But at least we are one step in the right direction, which I think we are.
Well, Jean-Michel, Christine, Ivan, Dottie, Brian, and Casey, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible stories with us. I think what we have seen today is a message of hope. And I think that's the message that you have given to all of us. And, you know, as we think about how we live our lives and when we think about what our students can do with their lives going forward, you have given them an incredible example of how out of tragedy people can be resilient, they can go forward, and to use something like debate and civil discourse in a positive way. You know, as you probably know, this is the university named for James Madison, the father of the US Constitution, and a lot of that was all about debate and civil discourse in a society. It's a key part of who we are as a university. So thank you so much for giving us such an incredibly powerful example of why that is so important and essential in a society. And very good luck to all of you with your continued work. We certainly are going to be cheering for you and thinking about you here at James Madison University. So this does conclude our third installment of the Madison Vision Series. I hope you will continue to join us for these presentations. We have several more coming up in the next semester. But let's one more time recognize and acknowledge our amazing guests who've been here.